see us. There we go. Where's my phone at? Let's just see real quick. Let's see how the audio's coming through. It's just so weird to me. Why in the world would they trade for Spencer Dinwiddie to waive him and giving up Dennis Schroeder?
And Thaddeus Young.
Exactly.
They got Dennis Smith Jr. though. That's probably what they wanted.
Oh, they got Dennis Smith Jr. out of that deal?
Yeah.
It's so weird to me. Why in the world would they trade for Spencer Dinwiddie to waive him and giving up Dennis Schroeder? Alright, I turned it up a little bit.
They got Dennis Smith Jr.
Oh, they got Dennis Smith Jr. out of that deal? Alright, I turned it up a little bit. I think we're good. Now I just need to post it and promote this thing. We can kind of start talking.
When do you want to start?
You can go. You can start. You can take it over.
Okay, so reading some of the deals of today that were posted on the official website for the trade deadline tracker. Let's see.
It was a very mid deadline, to say that at the very least.
Deadline.
Compared to recent years, we haven't had those thrilling storylines that we really are used to seeing once the NBA trade deadline comes around. We've had the Harden-Ben Simmons deal. KD, obviously, last year. But this year, it really seemed like that all of those big trades happened before the season started.
Yeah, Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby,
James Harden. Yep, James Harden, Dame Lillard. Those were all trades that happened right before the season started or during the course of the season. So it was just those big deals that we're used to seeing at the deadline were just not available to us come around February this year. And, a lot of the big moves have already happened. They had happened before the deadline, and teams weren't really thinking about that anymore. And so now, this was just the deadline for teams, for buyers and sellers to look at their roster and think to themselves, okay, what position are we in? Should we go all in? Should we start selling? We saw teams like the Knicks, go in on OG Anunoby early in the season, and then they go and get Bojan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks, get rid of some of the guys who just weren't really having a solidified fit in their roster. And then they go in and they just try and make a push. We saw the Mavericks do that as well, getting Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington, which really solid moves from Dallas today.
Yeah, and then a lot of just weird transactions. We talked about it earlier. You talked about Spencer Dinwiddie getting traded to Raptors. It made no sense. They're just going to waive him, although they got Dennis Smith Jr., so maybe there's some rhyme and reason to it. Then there's also the Grizzlies, who are just...
They did nothing.
They traded away pieces that made no sense. They traded away David Roddy, who was a very good young player for them. They traded away Xavier Tillman. They kept Marcus Smart, so they're selling and they're buying, or they were selling, but they didn't sell completely.
Yeah.
By the promise of Ja coming back next year, I think is what kept them from selling completely.
And I think that's kind of, like you said, it's the promise of Morant coming back. That's really, if I'm Memphis, that's kind of what I'm looking at next year. Because you had a team, what were they, the 2 seed last year, who they lost in the second round to the Lakers. Or no, they lost in the first round to the Lakers, excuse me on that. But you look at a team like Memphis, who has a real grit and grind mentality with the superstar in Ja Morant and that second star in Jaren Jackson Jr. Yep. So you realize, that team is just completely solidified by injuries right now. And you look at...
They had 13 on the injury report the other day.
I know. And so really, it's just 2K creative players at this point who are just playing these games. And it almost reminds me of like 2020 Golden State when that entire team was hurt.
Yeah.
And so when you look at what they had...
When D'Lo was playing?
Exactly. And so now they had Xavier Tillman, they had David Roddy, which were pieces who played really great roles whenever they were a fully healthy roster, and now you lose that depth, and you still have Marcus Smart, who figured he would be gone with them selling at the deadline in hopes of all their guys coming back. It was just odd but like you said, Morant's coming back, Jaren Jackson Jr. coming back. So I think they're just going to wait it out this year. They'll be bad. They sold at the deadline, get a higher draft pick in a very talented draft class that's loaded with wings, which they don't really have that 3 guard, that 3 position to pair. And if they could put one of those guys and form a big 3 of, John Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., and then maybe like, a Matas Buzelis, a Zachariah Richard, which who knows, they might be bad enough where they're in that range. And there's plenty of more sellers and tanking teams who are looking at those guys. But you look at the Grizzlies and think, hey, our guys are done. This season is over.
Yeah, it was just scrap on the season.
Yeah, and so now there's like, let's just load up, get an amazing young forward.
Kind of exactly what you said with the Warriors.
Yes.
Exactly. They had that 1 year where they were like, okay, this is over. We're not winning at all. We've got Steph out. We've got Draymond out. Clay's still out.
Yep.
And then they were like, okay, let's get the 2nd overall pick.
Yep.
Of course, they screwed over the pick, and James Wiseman, they didn't do a good job on it. But at the same time, they still got a 2nd overall pick and were a contender. And then they kind of went the same route the next year and got Jonathan Kuminga, who's now excelling for them. 25 points per game, I think, over the last 10.
He's averaging a lot right now, and him and Curry are the highest scoring duo in the last 10 games.
Yeah, they're insanely good, and that's why they didn't move on him. He was the most rumored guy probably a month ago.
Yes,
and now
along with Moses Moody as well.
Along with Moses Moody, and now they're like, okay, well, maybe your young guys can play. And so they're letting him go a little bit, and if they let him go, then you'll see the success follows. And I think if you let Kuminga be Kuminga, and then plus everything else plug in, then it could be a really fun Golden State team.
Yeah, and that's a Golden State team, though, that's really struggling with an identity. They're one of my losers of this trade deadline. They didn't sell on Klay Thompson. They sold on Jordan Poole last year after he had an amazing year, and then they only got Chris Paul out of it, which, in hindsight, Poole is struggling right now. I mean, he is not what he was when he was in Golden State. So you wonder, did Golden State sell on him at just the right time to get a guy like Chris Paul in a first-round pick? But Chris Paul is, 38? He's going.
I think Jordan Poole, if he was playing on the Warriors right now and wasn't in the position that he's in the Wizards, would still be Jordan Poole.
He would still be. No, I completely agree. He would still be that Jordan Poole that we're used to. The electric 6-man off the bench who could come and knock down 5 threes, make electrifying plays, see the floor and really just take on isolation defenders and really just put them in a blender. That's what he did with Golden State.
Well, Golden State's system is so unique that the fact that if you can play with outside of it, you're a really, really good player.
Yep.
But if you play with inside of it, it's a cushion.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
So Jordan Poole played within that system of Curry is such a attractive player when it comes to defenders that he's going to get so many more open shots and he's going to get so many more looks when it comes to that, especially with Draymond as a facilitator. But he's on the Wizards now. He's the one who has to facilitate. He's the one who has to get the shots for himself. And that's not going to really happen, especially he's getting keyed in on every night. So Jordan Poole has to be a 3rd or 4th option to be successful.
And like you said, 3rd and 4th option, and coming off the bench as the 6th man. That's why he was so electric, because he wasn't asked to be a top option. He wasn't asked to really go and score, 25 a night. He could go and score 25 on any given night with Golden State because he wasn't asked to, because he had guys like Steph. Klay was still hitting his strides after coming back from the Achilles injury. But I think when you look at Golden State, where did it all go downhill when they gave Jordan Poole that massive 4-year, $128 million contract?
And they had to get off of it. It also went downhill when Draymond punched Jordan Poole in the face.
Yes.
Because that's when it came to the point, and I think it was reported in the offseason that it came to the point where it was pick either Draymond or pick Jordan Poole.
And they picked Draymond.
Which is, honestly, in my opinion, not a bad pick, because Draymond is Draymond Green.
Exactly.
He is literally your point guard, your best defender, one of the best defenders of all time, and then he just does everything you need. For Steph Curry to be Steph Curry, Draymond Green has to be Draymond Green. So I think that's it. And then I agree with you. We got some losers on here. You said the Bulls, the Lakers, the Warriors. We'll get into that. I said DeMar DeRozan's a big loser.
No, for sure.
Because of the fact that he's now stuck. Now, DeMar DeRozan, one of the best players, scorers, pure scorers in the league.
Yep.
But he lost his trade deadline because now he's stuck in Chicago unless they buy him out, which is not going to happen. They're not
Yeah,
going to buy him out.
they're not with the size of the contract he's on and with the play that he's been doing. You're not just going to let a guy like that walk away.
Yeah.
And it really sucks for DeMar DeRozan because obviously, as someone who has watched him for so long, grew close to him whenever he was in San Antonio, developed a strong love for his game and the way he played and him as a person. It was just, it really sucks to see this situation because Chicago, that first year, they got DeMar DeRozan. They got Lonzo Ball. They got
it was looking nice.
They looked nice. They were the 6th seed that year, and they lost to the Bulls. Not the Bulls, the Bucks. They lost to them in what was it, 5 or 6? It was something like that.
Yeah.
And then it seemed real promising. Then Lonzo gets injured, and he hasn't been on the court ever since.
Yeah.
Let's hope to see him back eventually. And then Levine's been struggling to find a consistency and stay healthy as well. I mean, there's not. That roster is too talented to be this bad.
I agree.
You had Alex Caruso, who's, an all-NBA defender. Patrick Williams, who had so much upside coming out of FSU as an elite two-way player.
The potential was there.
And he hasn't developed into what they wanted him to be. And now they don't really have any center depth. I know they kept Andre Drummond, which is interesting because that was something that teams were monitoring his situation because there's plenty of teams who need a backup center in this league.
And you saw a lot of teams go around him, honestly, because I think the asking price of the Bulls was so high, most likely that they didn't want to fork over so much. As like you saw the Celtics. Celtics were rumored to want Drummond. Well, they went and got Xavier Tillman instead. The Dallas Mavericks were a huge suitor for Andre Drummond. They went and got Daniel Gafford instead.
Right.
So people worked around them. And I can't imagine the asking price for Daniel Gafford being higher than maybe because Daniel Gafford's younger, but still Andre Drummond's a very, very serviceable big. I looked at it the other night. He came off the bench for the Bulls and had 16 and 16. The dude can get rebounds. The dude can score still. He's a very efficient player in the league. But, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they buy him out because he is in a one-year deal and he's not going back there at all. But if they do buy him out, I would look for the Sixers to probably go for him because of Embiid's out pretty much.
He's out for at least he's out at least 4 to 6 weeks, and then he'll be looked over again from there.
Yeah, so maybe a month out from playoffs is when Embiid comes back. You need Paul Reed's not the answer.
No,
he's a perfect backup big. That is exactly his role.
But he's not someone who can rebound.
Big.
He's a stretch big who doesn't rebound the basketball that efficiently, and that's what they're missing.
Yeah,
they're
he's
missing
a power forward.
They're missing Embiid's dominance on the interior and as a rebounder. And so when you get a guy like Andre Drummond, who has been known historically for what he's done as a rebounder, that's huge.
Or Dwight Howard even a few years ago.
I mean, yeah,
Dwight Howard, what he did as a backup big for Philly, along with Andre Drummond, what he did as a backup for Philly is exactly what they need. They need a dominant guy. They don't need a stretch. They need a big dude in the middle to back up.
Luke D, welcome to the stream. We got two viewers in the chat. Just going over the NBA trade deadline, and we're going to be talking over here for maybe an hour or so, just bringing down all the news that has been happening. Hopefully, also, if the audio is not enough, just please say something. We're working on one mic right now. We went from a really professional setup to a really ghetto setup in a matter of 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So, regardless, though, we're still here trying to bring content to you guys. Speaking of buyouts, Victor Oladipo has just been bought out by the Memphis Grizzlies.
Is he healthy?
I think he is healthy, which then still remains that question of what was the Steven Adams move for? They got, 3 second-round picks out of that?
Yeah, and they're probably going to package it for maybe a better player in the offseason. I mean, they just sold. They sold everything that they could and got off every contract and got off every guy. But also, they're hurting their roster in the long run.
Yep.
Because David Roddy and Xavier Tillman packaged with maybe a good player or a good draft pick
could have got you something.
Could have got you way more than what they got.
Yeah, they were just... They saw it, and they were just like, sell the house.
Well, those are great supplemental pieces when you look at it. But instead, they just go, let's just get them out. We'll focus on this year as a rebuild year or a retool year.
And I think that's the best way to go about it if you're Memphis. Because as we mentioned earlier, you got your star players out for the season, and they're going to come back. So now it's let's just grab the best young forward or talent available through the draft with what we have and just lock in for next year because they're a team who will be back next year. We know without a shadow of a doubt.
Ja. And they were already back this year with Ja.
Yes, when Ja came back from his suspension, they were looking great. John Morant was doing what he does. He was facilitating, making plays, providing explosive, electric basketball And then whenever he got hurt, obviously they just went right down the drain, and that's kind of when they started selling.
Yeah, and then you look at the opposite of selling today. The Knicks are on the buying market because they got Bojan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks, two huge pieces to add to a Tom Thibodeau system that would probably fit them perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, Alec Burks was in New York for a little bit, a little stint while Thibodeau was the head coach and was that backup point guard. Maybe started for a little bit too. I can't remember. But then you go get Bojan Bogdanovic, who has been really just on a tear. And I am not shocked that there was more people in the market for him, like the Lakers or
the
Mavericks, the Sixers. But I mean, regardless of the Mavericks not looking after him, they still really killed it today.
Yeah, they won.
And
we both have the Mavericks on our winners list.
Yep. And so when I look at a team like the Knicks, who have just consistently been middle of the pack, they've never been that bad, but they've never been a contender. This is a contending move for the New York Knicks. Yeah. You look at that team, and they were full of young talent. You know, they gave. I feel like they still gave up on R.J. Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley too early. But when you look at R.J. Barrett, he's been struggling to find a consistent pattern as a player. And then Emmanuel Quickley, I thought they knew that they were going to lose him in free agency, so they said let's just package him and go get some great players in OG Anunoby and Precious Achiuwa. And Anunoby has really been the glue guy for that Knicks team.
Well, you look at Thibodeau and his systems in the past, and if you are a defensive-minded player, you're going to fit into a Tom Thibodeau system.
Yes.
And that's like Joakim Noah. He was perfect in the Tom Thibodeau system at Chicago. I mean, Taj Gibson, he stayed in the league because he's perfect in a Tom Thibodeau system. But OG Anunoby is the perfect player to fit into that system, and that's why he was like, okay, whatever it takes, let's get OG Anunoby. And Precious Achiuwa is a good surprise out of it. Then you get a pure scorer like Bojan Bogdanovic who can also defend at a high level.
Right.
Plus Alec Burks, who's already played, you know what he brings. He's averaging, I think, 12 points per game this year, which is good, but it probably will turn down to 10 to 9 because of the Knicks is a better team than the Pistons, obviously. And they've got more depth. But as soon as you get Julius Randle back, even without Julius Randle, as soon as you get Mitchell Robinson back, you are a beast in the East.
And that team really looks like it's finally suited for a deep playoff run. They got their first playoff series in a while going against Donovan Mitchell's Cavaliers last year, which that team has really taken a step up. They didn't make any moves. They stayed where they're at, and like you said, they're at the 2 seed, and I think they've won 16 of their last 14 games or something like that. They're on an absolute tear right now. So when I look at teams like Cleveland, Boston, who decided to go get just the right players to try and go on a run, like you said, getting Xavier Tillman was really huge. Yeah. And I don't remember what other moves that they made.
They got someone else, I thought.
But they're not doing anything crazy because that team's already full of stars. You got Drew Holiday, you got Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Kristaps Porzingis, who's really rejuvenated his career since going to Boston
and
the Wizards, yeah, and then you got Derek White coming off the bench, Peyton Pritchard, and then now they go add Xavier Tillman. I mean, the East is consistently remaining more competitive than the West has in recent years, which is shocking because in the 2010s, late 2010s, it was best of the West, wild West. I mean, like I remember
West.
I remember the years like it was 2015, I think. San Antonio went from the 2 seed to the 7 seed, or the 2 to 6 seed. It was something ridiculous like that. They were the 2 seed and lost the final game of the season, and they ended up facing the Clippers in the first round, which they eventually went on to lose that game, that series, in 7. And so when I look at that compared to what the East is now, that could rapidly shift at any given moment. And you got 4 true contenders right now. I think I look at the Celtics, the Cavs, the Bucks, and the Knicks.
And I would honestly, if Joel Embiid comes back, 76ers could possibly do it with their acquisition of Buddy Hield today, and they were fourth to last in 3-point shooting. They get the best 3-point shooter other than Steph Curry in the league in Buddy Hield. They add him to the team.
And they didn't lose much either. They lost
Marcus Morris.
LaMarcus Morris and Fortman Korkmaz, who thought he was cool enough to demand a trade out of Philly. But you bring in a guy like Buddy Hield who can stretch the floor and consistently knock down that 3 ball, which is what they've been missing for so long. You got guys like Tobias Harris and Tyrese Maxey who can light it up. Yeah. But they didn't have that spacing. They had Kelly Oubre in the the off season, who can shoot the three ball, but
Oh, very
that's
well.
not something he's known for. He's known for getting to the rim on tough, physical basketball play, but he's not really someone who's going to stand out in the corner and shoot it. That's what Buddy Hield is.
Oh, Buddy Hield is the guy where if Joel Embiid's in the post, he's on the wing ready to shoot.
Yep, and a double
that's
comes his
perfect.
way. Yep. And so when I look at Philly, they go and make that move, and like I said, it just matters on how quickly Joel Embiid is going to get back and how well the Sixers and Tyrese Maxey specifically are going to be able to stay afloat during this stretch from 4 to 6 weeks where he's going to be out for quite a while.
Yeah. Well, if you remember a few years back, the Sixers, and I'm trying to transition to a Sixers fan right now, but you remember the Sixers had Seth Curry.
Yep.
And they had Danny Green. That was their best squad in recent years when they had Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid, Danny Green, and Seth Curry as their starting line. Well, they get a better Seth Curry, which is Buddy Hield. A better version of Seth Curry. Because he's honestly been a better player. And he's more consistent with shooting the three ball. So he is going to be perfect for what they need. And then you talked about it, and I love that though, because I've always been an East fan. I've always loved the East more than I love the West. Not you, you're a Spurs fan, but
Right.
still. Since Michael Jordan, it's been dominated by the West.
Yep.
Dominated. Kobe and Shaq, the Spurs, the Golden State Warriors,
The Thunder's run for quite a
the
while.
Thunder's run. I mean, you look at those teams and it's like, well, what can the East do? The East figured out how to do some stuff this year. The Bucks got Dame. That solves a lot of problems, although it
But
creates a lot of problems.
Created a lot of problems, yet solved a lot of problems at the same
Yes.
time.
But it's a superstar tandem. You got the Celtics who went out and got Porzingis, got Holiday, Derek White has emerged as a freaking stud. And then you look at other teams like the Cavs who made minimal additions, but they still have Donovan Mitchell.
That team was already well built. That was a team, I think it was 2021, when they went and got the 8th seed. It was Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen. And then they saw that 1 year success and said, hey, we need to buy all in on a superstar. Then they go get Donovan Mitchell, and now look where it's paying out for him. That's a team that I think we could see potentially in the NBA Finals come around June.
Well, it's a lot like the Thunder. The Cavs were in the same position that the Thunder were.
Yep.
They've got very good young pieces that were excelling way too early than they expected, and they went on a run. But now the Thunder are saying, we're going to stay packed. We're going to go into the offseason. They got Gordon Hayward, which is a win. You had him as one of your winners.
I do,
That's
yeah.
a win. Gordon Hayward's an experienced guy who's been in the late offseason with the Celtics.
And that's something that Oklahoma City was desperately needing was
Yes.
veteran leadership. They don't
Veteran
have that.
leadership.
That's a team that is full of young kids. SGA, J-Dub and J. Will, Chet. Those are guys who have been in the league and who haven't really had experience in the playoffs. Gordon Hayward has been a lead guy in playoff runs and has had experience. He knows what it takes. And
Even on
Oklahoma,
the Jazz. I forgot about
yep,
that.
and
The Jazz.
Oklahoma City, they're missing shooting. They're missing spacing. They have a handful of dogs. Aaron Wiggins, Kenrich Williams. Those are guys Lou Dort. Yeah, those are just guys who make basketball plays, but they didn't have a lot of shooters. Shea's not really a three-point shooter. I know they have Isaiah Joe, former Hog. Shout out Woo Pig.
Woo Pig.
But they didn't have a lot of guys who could come off the bench, space the floor, and catch and shoot the three ball. That's what this was with Gordon Hayward.
Yeah, it's a great move. The experience that he brings is really unmatched. And he made those deep runs with the Celtics. He made runs with the Utah Jazz when they had him and Paul Millsap.
Paul Millsap, baby.
Yeah, Paul Millsap was a great NBA player. But he's kind of faded out into the sunset at this point.
Yep.
But Gordon Hayward's a great move for them. I would have liked to see a little more aggressive of a move. I think that was the most timid move they can make while still making a step forward.
Well, here's the thing. I'm gonna say what my youth pastor told me. He's a diehard Thunder fan, and we have a Thunder season ticket package. The Thunder have the team. They have the talent. But they are not experienced enough to go and if they face a team like the Lakers with Anthony Davis, if they go ahead and play them in the first round of the playoffs, I'm going to take the Lakers in 6. It's almost like Sacramento last year when they faced Golden State. Everyone knew Steph Curry's run was just inevitable. And that's how I feel about LeBron James and Anthony Davis, especially in the interior matchup. This season, Anthony Davis has had Chet Holmgren's number.
Well, yeah.
And
so does Joel Embiid with Limpy.
Okay, that's different. Joel Embiid scored 16 points on Victor Wembanyama.
But how many did he score on the
He
Spurs?
scored 70 on the
Okay,
Spurs.
yeah,
He scored 70 on the Spurs, okay?
Yeah.
Thunder
Joel
up.
Embiid.
I see you, Mike. What'd you say? Disagree. But what you said, this is a move where the Thunder needed to add some spices to the core main dish because they have SGA is an MVP candidate. Chet Holmgren is in the Rookie of the Year conversation, and then they are completely well-rounded. You have Jalen Williams from Santa Clara, who is in the running for maybe the most improved player of the year.
Beast.
He is absolutely balling. And then, that rest of that team, they have guys who play their roles. Lou Dort, Aaron Wiggins, Kenrich Williams, Josh Giddey, even though we thought he would end up in the county jail at the trade deadline.
Yeah, we had that predicted, actually.
Even though we thought he was going to be traded to the prison league, Josh Giddey still goes there and plays unbelievable facilitation basketball, knows how to rebound, and can really see the floor. They have plenty of guys who just know their role, and Gordon Hayward is going to come in there, establish a culture, because he's been on some really good winning teams.
Yeah.
Leader of the Utah Jazz for a few years, who was one of the most fun players at the time.
Oh, yeah.
Then goes to Boston, has that horrific injury, but still played a veteran role off the bench, and teams that were hoping for championship admirations. He wasn't there when Boston was in the finals a few years ago. He was already in Charlotte by that point.
He was in Charlotte when Kyrie left and Terry Rozier left.
That's right. That team broke up.
That entire team broke up. But I mean, I knew the Thunder weren't going to make a massive move.
Yeah, they had no reason
to make a massive move. I wanted that, but I knew they weren't going to. But the big thing that I saw with the Thunder is they know Josh Giddey's struggling this year. He's not playing up to what Josh Giddey played up to last year. So now they have the availability to slide Lou Dort to the shooting guard, put in Gordon Hayward at the small forward, and maybe run Josh Giddey as the bench unit. Maybe they got rid of Trey Mann, so the backup point guard can be Cason Wallace, but really,
which is fine. Cason Wallace is a really talented player.
Oh yes, but he's technically a shooting guard of how they played him this year.
Yes,
they played him more at the shooting guard than they played him at the point guard.
They have.
So maybe they can get Josh Giddey to think about the best playmaker in the game. One of the best playmakers in the game is Josh Giddey.
Yep.
And he can distribute off the bench. It's like Chris Paul coming off the bench for Golden State, except if Golden State had a better bench.
What do you say? Great something piece. But
yeah,
I
bench piece for OKC.
I do agree with that. I think Josh Giddey is a perfect facilitator for the starting lineup, but I do think I could agree seeing him facilitate that second unit, possibly. Do I think that's the direction they'll head to? I don't think so, but like you said, it kind of puts a little pressure on Giddey because his role could be more limited with Hayward's experience, and that's really what Oklahoma City was missing.
Well, just Dagnall, I think that's his name, Dagnall, Mike Dagnall.
Mark Dagnall.
Dagnall, like something like that. I can't pronounce it right, but he now has the flexibility to say if you're not playing right, you're just going to come out. And I got Gordon Hayward right here, who is I think he was an all-star at one point.
He was an all-star at one point for sure.
I've got a former all-star that can go get me a bucket at any point I need. So if I don't need you on the court, I can take you out. I think what we should talk about though is I'm seeing the trade right now: P.J. Washington for Grant Williams, Seth Curry, and a first-round pick. P.J. Washington is a very good player.
He is.
But I don't know if he's worth that.
That's a lot. I mean, I think in hindsight he is better than Grant Williams. And Seth Curry's a little older, so I think that was kind of just a filler piece. Because Charlotte is selling. Charlotte cannot.
Not fully.
They're selling without selling, if that makes any sort of sense.
Like Miles Bridges should have been gone.
Well, apparently Miles Bridges declined any offers. He himself was like, "Don't trade me."
They did sell their vets and sold the people that didn't want to be there, basically.
Right.
They got rid of Terry Rozier, got rid of Gordon Hayward, got rid of P.J. Washington. That's 3 starters that they basically got rid of because they were saying they're going to basically do what the Grizzlies are doing, which is saying, screw this season. We're going to go in the offseason. We're going to get a good pick. We might turn it into a good player, or we might just keep it and let's go.
I just don't see a vision in Charlotte. I feel like that organization has been lost for so long now, and it's almost there's really no point of return. Because LaMelo Ball is as fragile as a straw.
Yeah.
He can't stay healthy. I think he'll eventually end up getting moved. Maybe not this offseason, but in the next 2 years, LaMelo Ball is not going to be on the Charlotte Hornets. That's my take.
Since Kemba wasn't even well-constructed teams. I think the last Charlotte
Kemba
team
just happened to ball out well enough.
I mean, and they didn't put any pieces around him even to kind of make it contention. It was just Kemba was Kemba. But, I mean, the last time the Hornets had a successful team or a, just okay team was probably Alonzo Mourning in 1990s. And that's insane to think about.
Right.
1992 was when he was drafted. So, around 1992 to, I think he was traded to the Heat in maybe 2000 something. That's the last time the Hornets were the Hornets and were respectable. Now, if you count Chris Paul, I don't know if he counts as a Hornet or if he counts as a Pelican, but those teams were okay. They were better than the Alonzo Mourning teams, but still. I don't know if you count that because obviously that. But, I mean, Dallas Mavericks, great job. Daniel Gafford, we saw Daniel Gafford have his best season yet. Not this year, but with Russell Westbrook.
Yep, and it was and he was displayed as a perfect lob threat. And you know what Luka and Kyrie love to do? They love to get in the pick and roll and throw some lobs. Derek Lively has been amazing this season, and I think he needs to be talked about more because he is absolutely balling on both ends of the floor.
Yes.
But they were missing some depth.
Dwight
Powell and Maxi Kleber were there really other wings and bigs coming off the bench.
Yeah.
That's not gonna cut. That's not gonna cut it.
No, they tried that when they sold in the offseason a few years ago, not last year because they missed the offseason, but 2 years ago, they had Max Kleber starting at their center. Now, it worked against some teams like Rudy Gobert. They extended him out and shot against him and stuff.
Yeah, and created free lanes.
Yeah, it created free lanes, but that's not going to work against every team. Because Maxi Kleber cannot guard Nikola Jokic.
No.
Dwight Powell can't guard. Dwight Powell can't guard. Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively have a chance of guarding. No one in the league can guard Nikola Jokic.
Yeah.
But the better chance, I'll take Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively every single day of the week over Maxi Kleber and Dwight Powell.
And that was just a solid move by the Mavericks, who are in a very tightly packed Western Conference right now. They are in the 8th spot at 28 and 23, but they are only 2 games behind the 5th seed, which may not be home court advantage, but that gets you. And I think they might be within striking distance of the 4th seed. I know that 1 through 4 is unbelievably close, maybe separated by half a game. And I know there's some ties in there. It's unbelievable what's going on in the top 4 of the West right now. But the Mavericks,
the 1 seed the other day,
and then they lost it again.
And then they lost it.
Yeah, they lost it in a span of 24 hours. And Oklahoma City is now top of the West again. But when you look at a team like Dallas, who has 2 superstars in Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, how much longer is Luka Doncic going to wait to find success?
Well, how long did Dirk Nowitzki wait?
He waited a while.
He waited a while, and I mean, you got to know Dirk's probably in his ear and saying, "Stay with us." Mark Cuban's in his ear staying with us.
I know.
I mean, they gave him what he needed. They gave him Kyrie Irving, a second superstar.
Yep.
Now, it might not be the perfect second superstar, but they figured out something. They're at least cohesive enough where they're going to make the playoff or the play in this year.
Yeah.
But now they're needing wings. They shouldn't have traded Dorian Finney-Smith. They're regretting that right now.
Right.
Because he would be perfect with this team right now.
He would be a 3-and-D, what was it, 6'8", 6'9" forward who can defend.
Yeah.
They didn't have that. When then they tried the Grant Williams experiment, that didn't work. And so then you go out and get P.J. Washington, who's more of a scorer's mentality mindset, averaging 14 on the season and 32% from beyond the arc, which is great because they need spacing. And Grant Williams wasn't providing that consistently, but that's what the Mavs have been looking for. And that's kind of like one of my closest friends. She's a diehard Mavs fan, and she always tells me the reason the Mavs won the championship in 2011 is just because everyone was clicking as a team. It wasn't just you had a guy who made superstars better. And 2 years ago, I remember when the Mavericks were the 5th seed and they made it to the Western Conference Finals when realistically they shouldn't have. And
I completely agree.
Phoenix team, who on paper was insanely more talented, and the next best player on that team was Spencer Dinwiddie.
Yeah,
won a game in the Western Conference Finals.
And Jalen Brunson.
Yes, and then you have a superstar in Luka Doncic who makes other players better. And then you get the second superstar, and then now you're trying to get those role players. You have Derek Lively out of Duke, who is looking like a beast right now. But then like
you
I said,
fill out that roster.
Yes, you just have to fill out the roster with solid role players, and that's what they've done. I believe that some of these players are actually above the tier of solid role players.
Yeah,
Daniel
P.J. Washington is above the solid role player.
Yeah, he's a starting caliber small forward who I think will start for them. And I think when you look at Daniel Gafford, he's a guy who could go get you 16 and 10 a night and play some really stellar defense too, and be a true lob threat for Luka. You're not looking at just what they do in the stat sheet. You're looking at what the impact is on the floor. And Daniel Gafford and PJ, they're going to do a lot.
Yeah.
You want spacing, you want shooting, and you want defense and depth. That's what you got with these players.
And long threats with Luka.
Yes, and they didn't give up a lot either.
No, they really didn't.
I can't remember what they
gave
gave
up. One first, Grant Williams, Seth Curry, and then they gave up They gave up who for Daniel Gafford? They gave up someone. I'm looking right now. I'm trying to think. They gave up minimal. They gave up draft compensation and one player. Or Rashawn Holmes and draft compensation.
Whoop-de-doo.
Whoop-de-doo. Who gives a crap? So I think they ultimately are my major winner. Even though the Knicks made great moves, I think the Dallas Mavericks filled out exactly what they needed to fill out. And P.J. Washington is not only a good three-point shooter, but he's a guy that can go get you a bucket by himself. He is not a guy that depends on Luka Doncic to get a bucket. Like Grant Williams is not going to go get you a mid-range pull-up. That's just not what Grant Williams does. But Kyrie Irving, P.J. Washington, Luka Doncic, those are three players that can go create their own shot and get you buckets, which is really, really good. Daniel Gafford can get you lobs. And
that's what they needed.
The one worry for me with Daniel Gafford being traded there is now who starts, Derek Lively or Daniel Gafford?
I think it's got to be Derek Lively. I
hope so.
I think they both play that similar role.
Yes.
I think their roles are going to be the same.
And there's no drop off. How many teams can you say that there's no drop off when you sub out one center to another?
Like Daniel Gafford's a starting center on on probably half the teams in this association.
Yes, there's no drop off. Like Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford could honestly be twins when it comes to how they play basketball. They're both defensive beasts, and they're lob threats that score primarily not on the block, but
around
above
the rim.
Above the rim,
yeah.
And around the rim as well. Yes, I mean that's just how they play, and that's how they succeed. Sorry. And then I look at the team a few years ago, the Atlanta Hawks, that made the conference finals. Trae Young was unstoppable because he had Clint Capella. He had John Collins.
Yeah.
He had the people that he could just go, and they'll go throw it down. Luka Doncic has those pieces now. He has P.J. Washington who can throw it down.
I think they've really put themselves in success. They bought in on some good young talent for a while. Like, those are guys, I think they're under contract too. I'm not exactly sure for how long. But those are two young guys who really fit the scheme and really fit to Luka's desires, to fit to how he wants to play basketball.
Yeah.
And then now that they go get those, I think they're going to be set for quite a while. And Luka's under contract. I think they re-signed Kyrie this offseason too. They're set.
They're ready to go. They're ready to go. I think they're one ultimate piece away from being untouchable. And not untouchable, but at the same time, like, where they are going to be
the favorites.
They're going to be the top dog.
Yeah.
And they're one piece away from that. Right now, they're the scariest.
Up and coming.
The scariest lower seed you can play.
Oh, yeah.
Because if I'm an 8 seed playing, if I'm the Dallas Mavericks, I'm the 8 seed, and I'm the 1 seed, I'm scared out of my mind.
Yeah, because that's Luka Doncic.
Yes.
His game elevates when he goes from the regular season to the playoffs.
He's a leading playoff scorer all time.
We have seen the way he elevates his game when playoff time comes around.
Yeah.
And like you said, if I'm like Oklahoma City or when I look at a team like the Timberwolves, I think that team's set to be a Western Conference Finals bound team because they play.
They're so young and experienced.
But they've played playoffs. Anthony Edwards and John Morant went to school for 7 games. It's one of the best series we've seen in recent memory. Last year, they really were missing some pieces, but Mike Conley has come in and shown them how to provide a winning culture. Gobert's playing great defense. Cat is playing a stretch big role, and Anthony Edwards is playing with some swagger, looking like he's going to be a superstar on that team for a while.
Underrated move, too. They got Monte Morris.
Exactly, too. They got that backup. And then, Kyle Anderson's playing well. I can't remember who else is really... Naz Reid is one of the best backup centers in the NBA.
If not the best.
And that team, They're completely well-rounded, and Chris Finch, who has really turned that system around, they're playing extremely well-rounded, complete basketball with a veteran at the helm in Mike Conley, showing these young guys in Anthony Edwards how to really play winning basketball and spark a winning culture. Cat, who is starting to kind of find his role as a stretch big who can really score at will, and Gobert just doing what Rudy Gobert does on both ends of the interior.
Well, that was like really the big frustration that they had at first is when is Cat's moment? When is Gobert's moment? When is Anthony Edwards' moment? And they figured out that they can all have their moments together.
Yes.
Gobert can play his defense and get his dunks.
And that's when they're going to be at their most dangerous, is when these guys are just fluently cohesive.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's what they're going to do. And that's, I think you hit it on the nail. I mean, Mike Conley brings the cohesiveness himself because he is that kind of distributor, that kind of player that is going to just lead a team to success, kind of like a Pat Bev.
Yep.
Which
is big.
Which is a big.
There are plenty of teams who could desire a Patrick Beverly type of player on their roster. You need guys like that. You need veterans who provide intensity, who provide insight to young teams to win basketball games.
Yeah.
That's what Mike Conley's done. Yeah. Mike Conley provides a new level because he played with Memphis for so long, and they went toe-to-toe with the Spurs and played a couple playoff series. I mean, that team was never really going to anywhere, but Mike Conley has seen that experience, and there was a reason that Memphis team was so consistently winning for so long. Yes. You didn't really find a lot of postseason success from them, but they were always a borderline 50-win team.
Oh, yeah, they were great. Team. I mean, Marc Gasol, Zach Randolph. I mean, they had some good players surrounding Mike Conley. And Mike Conley was at one point, I remember,
one of the top point guards.
He was one of the top point guards. He's also one of the most highest paid people in the entire league.
He was, yeah.
He was one of the most highest paid. That's insane to think because he was in a smaller market, but he still shined. Like, he shined in a small market.
There's something about those small market stars, man.
Yeah. Like, and big market stars. If you can make it like Jalen Brunson has at the Knicks, you've made it. Because right now he's the dude. And I saw a few weeks ago, or months ago maybe, you remember the Becky Hammon went on ESPN and said that he can't be the dude because he's too small. Well, he's showing you he's the dude right now.
He is the dude, and there's a reason that the Knicks are winning because of him without Julius Randle, without Mitchell Robinson. Two of their biggest interior pieces. I mean, Randle's an all-star again for, I think, the third time in third time in 3 years, I think.
I think all with the Knicks, right?
Yes. Yeah. Ever since he went to New York, he's been an all-star ever since. They're playing very, you can't just have one guy.
No.
You can't have one singular guy. There's a reason the best teams are always the most well-rounded. You look at Denver last year. Yes, Nikola Jokic is the best player in the world, but he had that Jamal Murray. He had that Michael Porter Jr.
If he didn't have Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, he wouldn't have won that.
Yeah, and I remember the year that he didn't have those players, and they were still the 6th seed. I mean, like
a player. To your point, one single player, or maybe one single player and half a player, can really get you to the playoffs.
Yes,
but that's it.
That's borderline.
It can get you to the playoffs, or the play-in at this point, because now we've got the play-in. But that's all it gets you. There's only maybe one or two instances where one single player carried a team to success in the playoffs, where it's LeBron James probably with the earlier Cavs and Kevin Garnett with the Timberwolves that one year.
Yeah, I forgot about LeBron's historic run in 2018.
Yeah, those are like the one instances where a player kind of willed their way to it. But that's very uncommon. Like Joel Embiid has had no success in the playoffs because he hasn't had the players show up in the times that he's needed them to show up. James Harden disappeared.
That's what Harden does every year in the playoffs.
Disappeared. He had 40 points against the Celtics one game, and then did nothing else. Ben Simmons disappeared. Jimmy Butler's the only one who has appeared for him in the playoffs. And that was 1 year.
And we all know what happened that year.
Yeah, exactly. Kawhi Leonard. But and then you look at some other deals. Royce O'Neal, David Roddy, good pickups for the Suns.
Yeah.
That's some good pickups. That's solid depth pickups.
That was a team, whenever they traded Bradley Beal, everyone said, who are they going to play for less than 40 minutes? that team needed depth, and that's what they did. And now I think they're expected to let go to a handful of guys. I think they're letting Keita Bates-Diop go. I think they're letting.
They got rid of Utah Watanabe, Chimeze Metu.
Yeah, all those guys. Yeah.
They traded all. They actually did it on purpose because now they have 2 spots left on their roster
for the buyout market, which is expected to be pretty heavy.
Yeah, I mean Kyle Lowry. There's still John Wall in free agency. I mean, he hasn't been picked up yet.
I think a guy like Devontae Graham will end up on there.
I hope he does.
I really don't want to talk about the Spurs because they make me too mad right now for not doing anything.
They did not do a single thing.
We traded
for get Marcus Morris, and you're going to buy him out.
Yeah, we're going to buy him out, exactly.
You got a 2nd-round pick. That was your deadline.
Yeah.
How happy
we traded away our best shooter in a team that needs scoring off the bench.
Cedi Osman
is a dog.
Yeah, Cedi Osman's a dog. You still keep Cedi Osman on $6 million a year?
I can see some of the vision, but there are contenders who are wanting a Devontae Graham, a Cedi Osman. And the Pacers, who really have sprung up into relevancy this year, are going all in. You got Halliburton, Siakam. I feel like trading away Buddy Hield kind of hurt a little bit, especially for what they got back. Did they give back a pick at all? What that deal looked like? It was Morris, Korkmaz, and something else.
I'm looking at it right now. I think they got 3 second-round picks. Let's see, Buddy Hield. Yeah, Buddy Hield. Furkan Korkmaz, Marcus Morris Sr., and 3 future second-round picks.
Which is Yeah. I mean,
and I think one of them was rerouted to the Spurs.
One of them, yeah. It was actually, we got a 2029 second from the Clippers, which does us absolute wonders.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
You got rid of Doug McDermott, who's Dougie McBuckets, and that's kind of sad because he was pretty good.
I mean, he deserves to go back to the Pacers. He played really well with them, and he deserves to be on a contending team
with Domas.
But we didn't do anything, and I can't explain how frustrated I am. There were young guys on the market. Tyus Jones, Matisse Thybulle. I think maybe we'll go get Killian Hayes, who deserves a second chance. I don't think he's as bad as people say he is. Yes, he hasn't been great, but I think under the right system and under some development, and then pairing next to Wemby could be nice for him. I think there is something to be worked on with there.
Yeah.
And the Spurs are able to pick him up from the buyout market, not lose anything on him. And if it doesn't work, oh well, you tried. If he turns out to be a little better and plays solid backup point guard minutes, maybe 10 and 5 a night.
Yeah. Go get Josh Primo.
Stop it.
Go get Josh Primo.
You do not need to bring up Josh Primo.
Hey, that's the development in the right system. Yeah, Josh Primo was a very
he was
judgment.
He was on it, like that draft pick was terrible at the moment, but he was talented.
He's extremely talented.
He's extremely talented.
He had glimpse, kind of like a Blake Wesley, glimpse of really, really good play, and you knew he could make a player, like Lonnie Walker even.
He did remind me a lot of Lonnie Walker, a guy who could play extremely well in isolation, create his own shots off the dribble because the Spurs didn't have that. He was going to be really nice next to Wemby until he started showing his genitals around.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
Let's see more deals. Spencer Dinwiddie, that's terrible. Buyout market maybe to the Spurs. That'd be good.
I wouldn't mind Spencer Dinwiddie.
Spencer Dinwiddie would be a good pickup for you guys. I'm trying to think.
I do like Blake Wesley though. Blake Wesley has really started emerging.
Yeah.
As he's kind of going in that same route as DeJounte Murray. Didn't get a lot of. Really was struggling in his rookie year. Then in his second season, he's earning his minutes by playing exceptional perimeter defense. He's become one of the better isolation guards for the Spurs as a one-on-one defender. Very shifty, very good with his hands, knows how to create distractions, and that's something that I really like in his game, and I think that's something that will earn him more roster time. He just needs to develop that offensive game. Yeah,
one of my biggest losers, and we haven't talked about them yet at all, and this is the reason they're a loser at the trade deadline, is the Magic. The Magic currently sit at the 8th seed at 27 and 24.
And they started that season really hot.
And they started out really hot. They did nothing. They didn't move a single piece.
Which is odd, because when I look at that team, it's 2 full-on guards.
It's dysfunctional because they are 2 full-on guards. They've got Markelle Fultz, Cole Anthony, Anthony Black, Jalen Suggs, Joe Ingles, Jet Howard.
That's all 6 guards who get rotation minutes.
Gary Harris, 7. These are off the top of my head. If I looked at an actual roster, I would be interested to see how many are actual guards that are listed on their roster.
I think Ingles might be listed as a forward, but I can't confirm on that.
But he's played shooting guard before in his career,
Yes.
which is why I'm saying he technically can be a guard as well. But it doesn't make sense to me. In a team that needed shooting, they had a better package to offer Indiana than Marcus Morris, 4th-round Korkmaz, and 3 second-round picks.
Absolutely.
For Buddy Hield. They could have gotten Buddy Hield if they wanted to. They could have gotten a player like Bojan Bogdanovic or Bogdan Bogdanovic. They could have gotten Bogdan Bogdanovic easily from the Atlanta Hawks. But they decided to.
And this is a really talented team, too.
Oh, it really is. And I honestly thought they should have gone and gotten a bigger guy at the center position, like an Andre Drummond, or a stretch big, kind of like honestly, go get Mac Mo Bamba, but go get a stretch big, because I don't think Wendell Carter is the answer for them at the center position. I just don't think Wendell Carter. But I think they're also in the position where, okay, we can stay in the middle of the pack, get a high draft pick, and draft a center, like an Aaron Bradshaw. So I think that's what they're thinking about right now. Is there a lot of teams, they talked about it on ESPN today, a lot of teams want to wait for the offseason to see what happens instead of trading right now. Like the Lakers want to see if they can get Donovan Mitchell in the offseason, which won't happen. Trying to look at other deals. Monte Morris to the Timberwolves. Very good deal for the Timberwolves.
I don't know. It was just a this was just a deadline of buyers and sellers just making moves to try and get better.
Yeah. Corey Joseph to the Pacers. Who cares? Jaden Springer to the Celtics. That's a very, very it went out at the 2:01 mark or the 2-minute mark.
Yeah.
The 2:00 mark. Sorry, and that's one of the most underrated moves of the trade deadline for the Celtics. Because Jaden Springer can bring you some energy and some scoring off the bench for the Celtics, which is what they need. So I think that's an underrated pickup for the Celtics. And they only got him for 1 second-round pick.
Yeah, everything's died down now. It's just not really much. I feel like we've really covered everything.
Yeah, the Bucks, though. Great move by the Bucks to get Patrick Beverley. That's a win. I mean, them getting Patrick Beverley is an ultimate win for them.
And they needed someone who could bring defensive intensity and energy, and they were really missing that. I can't remember who their backup point guard is, but you got Drew Holiday, not Drew Holiday, sorry. They got Dame Lillard starting, and then Patrick Beverley coming off the bench. That's going to be a really good 1-2 combo for teams. You got one guy who can shoot it from 40 at a moment's notice, and then a guy who's going to really just put in all the dirty work, make all the smart basketball plays coming off the bench.
Yeah. He brings a culture of his own.
Absolutely.
And that's what they were talking about. Will Giannis, like Malika Andrews and Kendrick Perkins were talking about it, will Giannis accept Patrick Beverley and his culture?
Absolutely.
And I think right now, Doc Rivers is thinking, we need a culture of our own. And Pat Bev brings his own one. So, I mean, that's what they really need is their own culture. Getting back their own culture.
Right.
Because really, with their culture with Drew Holiday was, we've got defensive culture. That's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to be known for. They haven't had a culture this year because their defense is not as good. Their only culture is they have 2 superstars. And then what else are you going to do?
We were mentioning earlier how you can't have 2 players and hopes of making a deep run. The year they won, they had Holiday, Middleton, Giannis, Lopez, Javon Carter, Grayson Allen, I think was on that team too. I mean, they don't have that well-rounded culture this year, and you go out and get Pat Beverley, who's going to come in and be a spark plug off the bench.
PJ Tucker on that championship team.
PJ Tucker was so tough on that team.
He was very tough. He was one of the major reasons they won that. I think it was Dante DiVincenzo instead of Grayson Allen that year. I think he came off the injury.
I do remember DiVincenzo being on that team.
Yeah. I don't know if he ever came back and played, but I remember he was on that team. I don't know. We've talked so much. I think we've only been on for an hour, and we've talked about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
We've covered most of the league. Now, the who cares, we wrote down who cares. Spurs, Wizards, who cares? I put down the Jazz. Who gives a crap what they did? They traded away players.
They traded away good players, too.
They traded away good players. Ochai Agbaji, getting rid of him. Getting rid of Kelly Olynyk. for pretty much nothing in return.
However, though, I am glad that the Jazz did make that move because the Spurs currently own Toronto's 2024 first-round pick. But if it lands in the top 6, that goes back to them. So the Raptors have actually, I think that team is good enough to where they could make the play-in.
They are, I think we're sitting at the 12 seed, so just outside of it.
They're
12 seed, 1833.
They're bad enough to where they're not going to make the playoffs, but they're going to stay good enough to where that pick should convey.
Yeah, that should convey because there's worse teams.
You got Quickly, R.J. Barrett, Ochai Bachi.
Yeah, you got Portland, San Antonio, Memphis, Detroit, Washington, Charlotte that are all worse than Toronto.
Yeah,
easily. So
that means that Raptors pick should hopefully convey.
Yeah, that'd be good. You guys get 2 of them,
which would be great.
That'd be really good.
I really want to get Zachariah Richard out of France, and then maybe a Rob Dillingham out of Kentucky.
Yeah, I mean, there's one guy that I cannot remember his name, and it's really making me mad, actually. Alexander Czar.
Oh, I forgot about Alexander Czar.
That's exactly his name. He's French, and he's extremely good.
Yep.
They call him on this mock draft, they call him the wealthy man's Mark Williams, which is pretty good because Mark Williams is a good player.
Absolutely.
But I'm just looking at these. I see Zachariah Rizar. There's Jacoby Walter.
He's been on a struggle lately, though.
Cody Williams could be a beast.
Cody Williams is a dog.
Matt Spazelis. Kyle Filipowski. And that actually has the Spurs getting Kyle Filipowski.
I don't know how I feel about that. I think we need to go get a wing and a point guard.
I think you should get Ron Holland.
I wouldn't mind Ron Holland.
Ron Holland or Stefan Castle. Gosh, this guy is... I'm thinking of one play. Yeah, there he is. Isaiah Collier.
I love Isaiah Collier's game.
He was number 1 projected
I know,
a while ago.
He was, yeah. And I really love his game. He's a very versatile scorer. Kind of reminds me a little bit of a Cade Cunningham with his ability to blow by defenders with such ease and has explosiveness to finish over bigger defenders. That's something I really see in Collier's game. He's really good at being able to create shots off the dribble and stretch the floor, and he just sees the floor really well, knows how to manage it, which is something outside of Trey Jones the Spurs don't have. They don't have someone who can manage the floor, create open shots with or without the basketball in their hands. And the Spurs need a manager. They need a veteran. Yeah. And that's why I want someone like Trae Young. I know he's
yes.
I think Trae Young is the perfect fit. I do think I also like Cade Cunningham because I don't think he's going to be in Detroit much longer.
Probably not.
I don't expect him to.
I don't think they should. I think if they need to pick anybody, it's Jaden Ivey.
I love Jaden Ivey.
But if they don't pick Jaden Ivey, they've got to pick. In my opinion, this offseason, they have to pick between Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey. Because they cannot play together.
It's easy enough. Realistically, that's an easy enough decision.
But Monty Williams didn't even play Jaden Ivey at the beginning of the year.
And now he's playing in. I mean, Ivey had a career high 37 last night.
Yeah,
in their win against the Kings. They're 3-2 in their last 5 games. Surprisingly, after going on a 30-game losing streak.
Yeah, Trevon Brazile is projected number 27. It's very high for a guy that doesn't win. Zach Edey in the lottery. Bronny James at number 30 for the Boston Celtics, which means LeBron James will go to the Boston Celtics.
That'd be insane.
That would actually be so much fun.
Yeah.
Jason Tatum, LeBron James. Ooh, that'd be scary as hell. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Jared McCain at number 20. He might go up in stock or not. I don't know. But I definitely think Alexander Czar is a really good player.
See, I haven't done enough.
I would tank for him.
I haven't done enough scouting, so it's something it's on my list of things to do. I need to do my homework and learn about the draft coming up and figure out who's going to be the best fit into the Spurs.
Spurs just need a dude. They already have one, but they have 2. They have 2 dudes. I'll give Devin Vassell some credit. He's a dude, but they need a 3rd dude.
We need that point guard. We need that elite point guard or that elite wing, which I think we could get in this year's draft between Alexander Sarr, Zachariah Richard, and then Rob Dillingham. I really like his game. Isaiah Collier, even Nikola Topic.
Oh, Nikola Topic, yeah.
I really want us to bet on something proven in Trae Young. That's just me, though.
I would. So you're in favor of trading that pick?
I'm in favor of trading that pick.
Okay. Huh. I would agree with that, honestly, just because you want the veteran experience and someone who's already proven.
My dream scenario is for the Spurs to trade Keldon Johnson, and 3, unprotected firsts. Give Atlanta their picks back. Give them unprotected first for Trae Young, and then draft. Our pick was already going to be bad enough, and then to take Zachariah Bashar out of France.
Especially if you have 2 of them, you can really play with that one of them and then keep the other.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, the possibility of even having 2 of them would be nice, just to even play with, like, the idea of, well, we have 2 picks, we can shop both of them, we can keep one of them. It just gives a lot more options to the general manager of the Spurs.
Yep.
So, that's nice.
Yeah.
And Greg Popovich, if he stays, he wants to win.
I think he needs to hurry up and hang it up. But we'll see. I mean, he was saying some stuff about how it took Jordan 7 years to win a championship, took Jokic 8. I don't want to wait that long, but I just want us to start. I want us to be relevant. I want to see us back in the playoffs.
It's going to take 1 year for Wemby to win a DPOY. It should be this year.
It should be this year.
Wemby should honestly, and this is unbiased as I possibly can because I don't give a crap about the Spurs, but Wemby should win DPOY. He should win Rookie of the Year. He should win DPOY.
Yep.
I think he'll be the first to ever do it.
You're not going to hear me complain on that.
Yeah, because I looked at the comparison. I think you saw it probably too. The comparison of the 2018 DPOY season for Rudy Gobert and his blocks and steals.
I've seen it.
Compared to 45 games of Wemby, and he's already passed both of blocks and steals.
Unbelievable work that he's doing.
Yeah, it's not been done by a rookie ever, and it's being done by 2 rookies this year, in Chet Holmgren and Wemby. But Wemby's the better player.
He is the better player.
Ultimately, he's the better player defensively and offensively.
Yep, absolutely.
So, I know you're not going to disagree with that.
No,
so.
never. I think that might be it from all of us.
We got 2 watching right now.
Let's go.
We talked about everything we wanted to talk about too. The Pistons, who cares? Yeah. Warriors are losers. Lakers are losers. Bulls are losers. The Hawks, major losers.
Major losers.
They're terrible. Clint Capella should have been moved. Might be bought out. I can see Clint Capella being bought out.
I don't know.
Let's see it. Hope he does, because I would love to have him on the Sixers.
Sixers are expected to pursue Paul George if he's unable to sign an extension with the Clippers.
We on the same Twitter feeds?
Yep.
Oh, I forgot about this. Joe Harris waived.
Which would be interesting, because with the new CBA, you think to yourself, there's going to be a contender who's going to want to sign Harris. Well, with the new CBA, there are 7 contenders who are above the luxury tax who cannot sign Harris.
Yeah. I would think probably he's going to get signed by the Suns.
I think they're over the luxury tax.
They have 2 spots left, though. So they
that's
have
fair.
deals if they want.
That's fair. But
I think the Suns will get him because he's already played with KD before.
Yeah, and they need shooters, they need spacing, which is really missing, and now they're trying to kind of go all in and get some better depth, getting Royce O'Neal, getting rid of some of those pieces. So,
Royce O'Neal, David Roddy.
Yeah, some really, really solid moves, but nothing league shaking, unfortunately.
No, DeMar DeRozan could have been, wasn't traded. DeJounte Murray could have been, wasn't traded. So
it is what it is. So. Well, that'll probably do it for us here.
Yep.
That's it. That's all we have to cover. Thank you guys for watching. If there's any of you guys are they're not subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that button. Hopefully we'll be posting some more videos here. And shout out to Connor for putting this stuff together. It was his idea. Wasn't really thinking about it, but he cooked. And the deadline is come and gone. So that's it from us. If you want to go up and hit that red button.